everybody. My name is Anna Palmer. I am the CEO and one of the founders of Punchbowl News. And I want to thank everybody who's in person for us here today, as well as those who are joining us on the streaming audience for this conversation about the future of energy. A big thank you to Southern Company for making this conversation possible. I'm going to be joined on stage shortly by Senator Barrasso, the Republican Conference Chair. We are going to talk about news of the day. Of course, nothing's happening in Washington right now, so we'll have plenty of that to talk about, as well as what he sees happening in the energy environment today, as well as going forward. And afterward, I'm going to be joined on stage by the CEO of Southern Company, Tom Fanning, for a fireside chat. As always, you can find us on all social media platforms at Punchbowl News, so please share about this conversation as it goes. Senator Barrasso, welcome to the stage. Hello, sir.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, we will kick it off here with a few news of the day questions, as we always do in these conversations. As everybody here knows, the group of bipartisan senators have been working on this gun control legislation. They have a framework. It seemed very optimistic about coming forward with a proposal shortly to pass something in their estimation before the July 4th break. Just want to get your sense. One of the things I've noticed is just the openness among a lot of your Republican colleagues on this issue to potentially vote for this. Where are you at? What do you think is causing that openness?
Well, I think what we saw happen in Uvalde is heartbreaking for all Americans. And you say, what can we do to help prevent this from ever happening again? You want parents to be able to send their kids to school so the kids don't live in fear at school, so it is a safe school environment, and so the parents can feel that their kids are safe at school. And then the question, how do you make that happen? And it's not all that easy. How does one write a law or pass a law that would result in that? And there were a lot of different ideas, but there's a bipartisan group that came together, sat down, tried to come up with, and did come up with a framework. The magic number, as you said, is 10 Republicans and 10 Democrats, because if that means you get 10 from each and you get enough of the other party, you can get to the 60 votes necessary. At our conference lunch today, lots of questions were, when will we see the language?
Right.
Because the devil's in the details. You've seen this where people have good intentions and good thoughts on things. You want to say, how is this going to work? And, for me personally, from Wyoming, strong Second Amendment state, we believe in our constitutional rights. I'm not going to vote for anything that would in any way jeopardize the constitutional rights of law-abiding citizens. So that's the discussion. People say, let me take a look at the language.
So you were waiting to see kind of your final verdict on this until you see the language?
I think every Republican that I've talked to has said that, and some Democrats have said it as well.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to the January 6th committee, another major kind of news storyline that we are all following this week. The committee has met. They started last week. They're doing hearings this week. I know you've been traveling some. Talk about, has anything come out that you've either seen or read about that you are surprised from these hearings?
Well, it was actually a press conference before the hearings where, one of the Democrat House members said, well, this is our way to do, to reform elections in America and to eliminate the Electoral College. And I'm saying, well, wait a minute, that's not what they've been saying. So this tells me this is an agenda. What I've read in the news, and I've traveling, so I haven't had a chance to watch any of it. It does seem aimed specifically at President Trump and not really at the idea of trying to find answers other than a programmed effort to go after President Trump.
So, but not even kind of some of the testimony by former Attorney General Bill Barr and others. I think it put into their own words what was happening in a way that I don't think I had necessarily seen before.
Yeah, I think for those of us who have been there that day, made up our minds on that. And, I'm more focused on the 2022 election than I am the 2020 election. And to me, the most important date is not January 6th of 2021. It's November 8th of 2022.
I want to ask you one other question on that then, which is Liz Cheney from your home state of Wyoming, obviously a lead Republican on this committee, at loggerheads with former President Trump on the regular. Do you think she's reelected?
Well, she has to get through a primary first in Wyoming, and it's very spirited. The ads are on television. As you know, President Trump was there over Memorial Day weekend. It was in the Casper Event Center. It was the largest indoor crowd, I believe, in the history of the state of Wyoming. Wow. More people turned out to see him than turned out to see Ronald Reagan when he had come to Wyoming. There were people, they wouldn't allow any more people inside. There were big screens outside. So, and it was a rally specifically related to that primary election. So there was a lot of turnout. There's a lot of energy. The election's not till middle of August.
Right.
So we're going to find out then, but it's going to be very spirited, and there's not going to be a lot of people there that aren't going to be fully informed of what it's about.
I was a local TV reporter in Cheyenne, Wyoming for a little bit. They definitely were not filling stadiums like that in it when I was covering the local news. Let's turn to the topic of the day, which is the future of clean energy. There's a lot to talk about, and actually we have been planning this event for a little bit, but it feels very centered in the moment, honestly, given gas prices, given inflation. This week, people facing $5 plus gas per gallon at gas stations, inflation becoming that even more critical issue. There's a lot of blame right now on the Biden administration for this. Is there anything that you think can be done by Congress at this moment to help relieve some of the pressures here?
Well, if we had an administration that wanted to work with us, yeah. But this administration doesn't want to do that. I mean, it's interesting how the president gave a very bipartisan speech in his inaugural address on January 20th last year, and he went to the White House, and the first thing, the executive order to kill the Keystone XL pipeline. I mean, over 800,000 barrels of oil a day, didn't come in, and he kind of pounded his chest. Look what I just did. I just killed Keystone. So he has broadcast to the world his approach to fossil fuels. When he was campaigning, he said he's going to eliminate fossil fuels. He said, I guarantee you, mark my words. I mean, he said it repeatedly. These weren't presidential gaffes. This is his plan to eliminate fossil fuels. And there was no real connection to what the needs are of the world for energy. And we all want to make energy as clean as we can, as fast as we can. We got to do it in ways that don't raise costs for the American public. So do we need wind? Yes. Do we need solar? Yes. Do we need oil, gas, coal, uranium for nuclear power? We need it all. Even if we're more efficient in using energy, the world demands for energy keep going up, and that's not going to stop. So there's a mismatch between the president's policies, and he talks about this incredible transition. The world's not ready for the transition. They don't have the batteries, they don't have the electric vehicles, they don't have the charging stations, they don't have any of those things. So he's kind of killing fossil fuels at a time when the American people are paying a price, and I believe the Democrats are going to pay a price for that decision come November.
Take Biden out of it. If we were in a different world, right, and you were, obviously you're a leader on this issue, on the committee of jurisdiction, what's one or two things that if you were advising the Republican candidate for 2024 that you would say, number one this, number two this?
So to take it really all out of this, so when I was in the state Senate in Wyoming 15 years ago on the Energy Committee, I always talked about energy security, economic growth, environmental stewardship. I continue to talk about those things today. We need energy security, which is American energy, not dependent on other people. We have it in the ground. We need the infrastructure that are now being blocked. We need to make the regulatory relief that you need so you can get it. You need the permits. Sometimes so many lawsuits are out there in terms of trying to develop the oil and gas. But, working with Joe Manchin and, come next term, either I'm going to be chairman of the Energy Committee or he's going to be chairman of the Energy Committee. We have a very good working relationship. But that's it. You want to make sure we use the resources that we have here in America. As a nation, we're much better selling energy to our friends and having to buy it from our enemies. And in terms of that last E, environmental stewardship, we do it better here in America than any place else. When the president would take him out of it, when anyone would say, oh, we'll just get it from Venezuela, they do it in a much dirtier way than we do. Just get it from Iran. Much worse environmentally in terms of how that energy is gotten. We do it well here, and so I think we ought to be much more reliant here and have the infrastructure so we can move it and make it available, and that will lower the costs.
I have two kind of follow-up questions on that. You talk about kind of the foreign interests. Obviously, what's happening in Ukraine has impacted the gas prices. We have the president going to Saudi Arabia. How concerned are you that we are, as a country, looking externally instead of internally?
Yeah, I have a lot of concerns about that. Foreign policy is, to me, it's always been, it's good if your values are lined up, but one of the toughest parts of foreign policy is if your interests are lined up, but your values aren't. And that's what I see happening now with this trip with the president to Saudi Arabia. If he's going there looking for oil, At the same time, you have the issue of the Washington Post reporter who was murdered. And so we have different human rights values, and at a time when we need the energy that they have, but we put ourselves in that situation, in a sense, by preventing us from getting the permits and getting the exploration going here. We have plenty of energy here in the United States. We ought to be using it because we get it properly. And these are good economic jobs. These are good jobs in America.
So talk about, because I think there's a lot of division right now. I mean, the Democrats are often in their camp, Republicans are often in their camp. You just said you and Joe Manchin have a great working relationship. That might surprise folks that you're able to kind of find common ground on these issues. What could be done in a bipartisan way?
Yeah, well, there's a number of things. If you expand that, so Lisa Murkowski, Joe Manchin, Maria Cantwell, Sheldon Whitehouse, and I did a climate tour to the north. So we were in Svalbard, northern Norway. We've been in northern Norway, Iceland, Greenland, all over the area to see the impact that is real of climate and go see some of the work that's being done on carbon capture and sequestration. For folks that have the focus on climate, there are things being done, and actually in Wyoming at a coal-fired power plant in Gillette, our University of Wyoming School of Energy Resources has the testing center there. They did an X Prize. UCLA won it to find ways to capture the carbon and put it into ways that it can be sequestered. They won it with cement. It's not like putting them into logs that can then burn. I mean, cement, that's sequestered.
Right.
Now, it costs more to make cement that way than the way that generates a lot of carbon, and the question is, how do you balance that out? But those are 5 people. When you look at that, from me, Lisa, this is so much of the Energy Committee, and Sheldon with his role on EPW. We know that there are incentives that will work to help with carbon capture. We believe in the technology. That we meet with Bill Gates on it. I met with him last week. So he has a book on that as well, and where we need to go with energy. So there are people that are working regularly on the efforts of affordable energy as well as responsible from the standpoint of climate and the globe long term. You can't get there overnight, and that to me is the mistake that the Democrats are making, where they want to do things dramatically and unilaterally and immediately, much to the detriment of our economy, at a time when India's emissions going up, the emissions in China are continuing to go up. You shut down the United States and Europe, we're still having an increase in emissions due to China and India. So you need to have the innovation that we're capable of doing because if China and India don't use that, and likely that's going to need, for them to use it, it's going to have to be cheaper energy than what they're using now, then it's going to be very difficult.
I want to ask about nuclear. In your home state, a retiring coal plant has been selected as a site for this. You've talked about some of the other kind of areas where kind of the industry is moving. Where do you see this in the mix?
Yeah, it's very important. 20% of the electricity in the United States, nuclear energy, which is really the only zero carbon source of energy. So people that are focused so much on the carbon, they should be big proponents of nuclear energy. I think this idea that Bill Gates is working on with this next generation modular nuclear plants, which are then stackable, is really what we may see the next generation. Now, it takes longer to permit one of those than it does to build it. I mean, it is interesting how long it takes to get permits in the regulatory system in which we live in this country than getting the thing actually operating and online. It's much bigger to get the permits than it is to build it. But I think that's the nation. They're going to do one in Wyoming, one in Washington State. The source of uranium right now is an issue. You got to get this high assay, low enrichment uranium that right now Russia has it and the Department of Energy has it, and we need it, and we're having a hard time working through the Department of Energy to get what we need.
Before I let you go, I want to talk. We kind of talked about where you see, the opportunities when it comes to clean energy, but there's a real likelihood that you could be chair of this panel. After the election. What would be kind of the first thing on your agenda? Yeah,
well, we want to get down American energy production up, cost of energy down, infrastructure in place, and work in a bipartisan way to get that done.
Before I let you go, we focus a lot on leadership in the Senate. We have deemed you one of the three Johns. Hopefully you've seen this in the Punch Bowl News, along with Senators John Cornyn and John Thune, who are in line to possibly take over as Senate Republican leader if and when Mitch McConnell retires. This is the Brez question of the day. What is your view on this? Do you want to be Senate GOP leader someday?
Mitch McConnell's not going anywhere, because there's actually a story about the four Johns, which are, if Mitch stays as leader, it will be four people named John who would have served him as whip, starting with John Kyle, and then John Cornyn, and then John Thune, and then John Barrasso. So Mitch isn't heading anywhere, and he has the support, I think, of the entire conference at this point.
All right. And how do you think the Republicans are going to do in the Senate in November?
Very optimistic. I think we're going to do very well. I can't give you the numbers, but I believe we're going to be in the majority in the House and in the Senate. And I will be chairman of the Energy Committee, and we're going to work on the kinds of things that I just mentioned.
All right. Well, you heard it here first. Senator Barrasso, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Really enjoyed it. Thanks so much. All right. And now I'd like to welcome Tom Fanning, CEO of Southern Company, to the stage for a conversation. Hello, sir. Thank you so much.
How are you?
Good.
Nice to be here again.
Yes. It's nice to be here in person. A year ago, almost, kind of in a couple of and change, we were doing this virtually. So I'm excited to be
right. Congratulations
here.
With the success. It's really going well.
Thank you so much. We are thrilled, and it's fun to be here tonight with you all hosting us. So let's get to it. That was a very spirited conversation with Senator Barrasso.
Loved it.
About kind of how he sees energy and kind of the landscape from his leadership perspective. You have a different kind of perspective for a CEO of a company in a state. I want to talk about inflation, the price of gas. What are you seeing on the ground when it comes to the impact to your consumers?
Let me run with that one a little bit. We actually are in all 50 states. And let me kind of define that. We have big electric franchise businesses in the Southeast. Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi primarily. We have a gas business that's in Illinois and Virginia and other places. If you ever heard of microgrids,
yep.
We have a company that has a 75% share of microgrids in the United States. So if this old model that my industry has been involved with for over 100 years of central station making, moving, and selling energy, we can miniaturize it, put it on your business, and you can have greater reliability and all sorts of things. Here is the guiding principle, I think, of where sound energy policy should be. And that is almost in a word, balance. When we think about issues like carbon, and we think about issues like cost, and we think about climate change and having bigger tails of distributions of outcomes that we have to respond to, what we have to think about is this idea of clean, safe, reliable, and affordable. These are not ors. These are not trade-offs. We must do them all. And importantly, I think the senator did hit it, but I want to put a bigger point on it. So Southern Company is about the size of the nation of Australia in terms of energy production. So we're this great big enterprise. Fully 40% of the customers that we are privileged to serve in the Southeast make less than $40,000 a year. This issue of cost goes to a buzzword that's called energy justice, but it is a real issue. It's not a buzzword.
Right.
And when we think about people that are having hard kitchen table economic decisions every day, they're trying to figure out how to live and what kind of place they're going to live in, and medical care, education, food on the table. It really does matter to understand what implications this is going to have to everybody, and it's got to be a fair outcome. We are all over the idea of moving to a zero carbon future or a net zero carbon future. This transition is one that's fascinating right now, and I absolutely agree with the senator. Look, the strategy that is robust and must remain in place is we're going to get to net zero. We've committed to 2050, and we have worked with anybody that will listen on both sides of the aisle, in Congress, in the administration. If we want to accelerate that time frame from 2050 to something else, I'm in. The words we use are yes and. And what we need, this industry needs, is the administration, government broadly, to be in the boat with us, to make the hard decisions enabled to get there. And I think we can get there, but boy, it's going to require work. One more thing, and then I'll quit my opening riff here.
I know. It's perfect. I don't even need to ask questions. It's great.
So if you look at my career, it's been kind of a Venn diagram of certainly energy policy in Southern Company and advancing, we're the only company advancing new nuclear. We're the only company doing robust proprietary research and development. I mean, the senator mentioned Bill Gates. We're the one working with Bill Gates on developing Gen 4 reactors. That's the next generation we think we can do, including small modular reactors, which he also mentioned. But our whole idea on energy policy right now is North Star. And let me finish. But it is, we got to do real science, real advancement, not rhetoric. All right? I worry about people that do rhetoric and they come up with these fancy solutions. It's going to require real hard stuff. I'll get there in a minute. Then, second Venn diagram circle. I have a long relationship with the Fed. For 3 years, I was chair of the Atlanta Fed. I was chair during the transition of Janet Yellen to Jay Powell of the Conference of Chairs. This is the advisory board to the big Fed. And I've stayed in touch with Jay, and I've always had this interest of what impact energy has on the economy. And then finally now, in kind of the last part of my career, been dealing so much with national security. Whether it's leading the electricity industry or whether it is, I was appointed by Mitch McConnell on the Cyberspace Solarium Commission. I was the only CEO-looking guy there that developed a playbook on how to implement a cyber strategy for the United States, completely reimagining national security. And then finally now, I'm chairing the CISA advisory board in Homeland Security with Ukraine and everything else. That is on us right now. If I think about the union of those three circles in a Venn diagram sense, I come back to something that I started with when I first got this job. And it's the idea that, well done, energy security breeds economic security, breeds national security. And I think we can offer that. The United States, if we unfetter our energy complex, can accomplish great things for so many Americans, to create jobs, grow personal incomes, and make American lives better. And that's what we're about right now.
I want to talk about, kind of unpack a little bit of what you kind of laid out here. So I think, first of all, when we spoke almost a year ago, maybe a little bit over that, we were talking a lot about carbon emissions, your commitments,
sure,
the 2050 push there. Talk about an update. Where are you? Are you still on track for that? You said, and I want to get it to potentially be sooner. What could that look like?
Sure. Let me paint the picture of where we're going, and then let's talk about the tactics. The strategy is robust. The tactics have to react to the realities that we face in the current environment. Who thought we'd be at $9 gas prices? I guess today it dropped $1.40 or something, and now we're in the low 8s or whatever. But here's where I think we are. The future for Southern Company, and in fact, before I became chairman, we produced something like 70% of our energy from coal. The future will be something like 50% from renewables, mostly solar, 20% from nuclear. It is a dominant solution in a low carbon environment. We must do new nuclear. We must have the vision and courage in America to get that done as a national imperative. The third really deals with the fact that we have hydrocarbons, in our case, particularly natural gas, that will persist even beyond 2050. The idea is not to get rid of natural gas, rather it is to deal with the carbon atom, which says we need carbon capture and sequestration and all that stuff. Oh, and by the way, Southern Company, through our research and development, we run, and have now for over a decade, the nation's Carbon Capture Research Center. Along the way, we also ran the International Carbon Capture Research Center. Here again, real practical solutions, not rhetoric. Then I think we probably need something else. Because of our belief in research and development and the power of technology, then one of the things we need the government in the boat with us is to invest real money so that we can achieve a net zero future far before in a more effective way and reduce costs using technology advancements. I can't tell you exactly where we're going to end up here. I don't think that we're in a position today to say, oh, it's lithium-ion storage is the way to go. There may be material science advances that we've got to put in place. But there may be all sorts of other things. I know some people in my industry are just giddy about the potential of hydrogen. Yesterday, I guess it was last week, we did the first large-scale test, first in the United States, of blending up to 20% hydrogen in with methane. We're doing a project in Alabama that could take that number to 30%. Nobody's done that before, and we didn't run around and get giddy about it. I think hydrogen is a really important issue, but I would argue also it's an issue that without an extraordinary advance in investment, you could be in the 2030s, 2035, something like that. Chicken and the egg. Where are we going to get the hydrogen from? How are we going to move it? We can't even build gas pipelines to get cheap gas out of the Marcellus region today.
Right.
We got to fix that.
So talk about that investment, because that, you're talking about government investment and really an ability for Republicans and Democrats to work together. Something
Absolutely.
that we don't see oftentimes on issues like this. It gets pretty partisan. Spending and, how do you see that? How important is it for you that Republicans and Democrats can kind of come together on this?
So it was so funny. When I got on the Cyberspace Solarium Commission and our office folks here, Brian Anderson runs this office. He's just fabulous. And I'm up here a lot. And I walk the halls. And on cyber, everybody knew it was a problem, and yet nobody really knew what to do. And I think the work product of the Cyberspace Solarium Commission was the first time we produced a playbook that people could adopt, and something like 75% of it is now passed into law. And now we've gone from idea to policy to law. Now we're going to operationalize it, and we've got great people to do that. I think we're at a similar place on energy policy. So I've worked both sides of the aisle. I've been to the climate caucus for the Republicans. This isn't just a Democrat issue. People understand that we need clean, safe, reliable, affordable. Oh, and by the way, given the variance we're seeing in nature right now, maybe reliable should be resilient. Haven't we seen Winter Storm Uri hit Texas and create a disaster? We need to think about markets like integrated regulated markets where we can address problems like this in an expeditious way, in a simple way, not a complex way, and to put in place, I think, policies that can get the United States there faster and more efficiently. That will require Congress, the administration, to pull together. The objective is clear. I think it is absolutely essential that we keep prices as low as possible, especially along all of the income strata of America, and make sure that we can burgeon our economy with growth and jobs that really make sense and really help the economy right now. Isn't it interesting? We're seeing inflation. The biggest factor in inflation right now is energy. We could fix that. So, gosh, I think the potential is there for the sides to come together. I think both sides see a similar problem. We just got to find the common ground in the middle. And here's one more thing I will say. America is so divided right now, and there's such division around the world. I think the business community can take it as a responsibility and as an accountability maybe, not only to make, move, and sell energy, but in this case, create a constructive middle where both sides can find elements of agreement and work together. As I talked about my own personal Venn diagram, I think there's a Venn diagram for America where both Republicans and Democrats can come together in consensus and move this country forward.
I'm going to ask you two more questions. One, I want you to kind of drill down a little bit. And the senator mentioned nuclear. You talked about it as being one of the things that you are really focused on.
You bet.
Talk to us about your experience with it. What are the opportunities? What are the challenges?
Yeah, boy, permitting is a big deal. So is execution. I think we have spent so much time building our new nuclear plant, and we've had increases in cost for a variety of reasons. I think we can still deliver the project despite the schedule delays and the costs associated with those schedule delays to the prices that we promised back when we were ordered by the Georgia Public Service Commission 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And why is that? Well, that's because different people along the way took chunk. Westinghouse went bankrupt, for heaven's sakes. Wilbur Ross and others inside the Trump administration at the cabinet level were so helpful in us getting $3.7 billion of guarantee money from Toshiba to offset costs. All of those benefits we extended in Congress, both in the House and in the Senate, an ability to continue production tax credits associated with new nuclear. All of those benefits go to customers. So it is really hard. But this is another area where if we do smart incentive-based regulation, get the government in the boat with us. I'll give you one little example. So we've been working with Bill Gates on the so-called Gen 4 reactors. Molten chloride salts is our favorite deal. And the proposal was, we've taken it to a point, and we're very satisfied with where we are. The next scale-up is going to require $200 million. Now, is Southern Company going to cough up $200 million? I'd love my brothers and sisters in the industry maybe to form a consortium, and maybe also the government can help that. This is a national imperative, and the government needs to be in the boat with us.
All right, last question before we break and folks can have a cocktail and talk more about this. But I want to ask you, I asked the senator at the end, if there's one thing he could do if he takes over as chairman, what is it? As a CEO, you're talking to Republicans and Democrats all the time. You're on the Hill, you're lobbying them. But what is the one message that you want to bring? Is there one thing that you feel like needs to be top of mind?
Well, it is this notion of balance. It is this idea somehow that as we enact policies, and we can help inform those policies, that clean, got it, we got to deal with carbon, we got to deal with everything else, safe. This infrastructure is so critical to America. If we don't do it right and well, we can potentially create calamities in our economy and make people less safe. Got to do it the right way. Reliable. Oh no, maybe we need to do it resilient. And we're working very hard on this national security front, reimagining how the private sector will lean in with government. You know, the battlefields of the past, when we created the Solarium Project, it was the idea that Eisenhower put in place to reimagine national defense in a post-World War II environment. And the idea was a tank battle on the place of Poland, and you had the Soviet Union here, and you had, you know, emergence of NATO over here. Right now, that tank battle is occurring on the telecom systems of America, our electric grid, and our financial systems. We can't rely on the oceans or friendly neighbors north and south. The battle is here. Companies like mine get attacked 3 million times a day. It is incumbent upon the private sector to lean in with government, join in the effort, and reimagine that combination of national security. That's something we got to do. This resilience, whether it's a cyber attack or a winter storm, we need to rethink energy markets. We need to make sure that the energy markets are designed not with some sort of spreadsheet in mind, but rather this balance of clean, safe, reliable, and affordable. And then the last point, affordable. Energy is so central to our way of life, we got to make sure that everybody is considered as we move forward in this transition, which we must do.
All right. We'll leave it with there. Tom, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you for joining us in person and on the live stream. We really appreciate it. And to Southern, of course, for hosting us, and to Senator Barrasso for his time this afternoon. Just a reminder, Southern is hosting some cocktails and conversation after this, so please join in there. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Thanks so much. It was great.